Hey everyone, hopefully you can see me clearer than ever. How's everyone doing? Excuse my squeaky chair. Welcome to Sound Design Sessions on Monday with myself, Brent March. How's everyone doing? Hopefully you're all having a good start of the week. Yeah, I've just discovered after, I have no idea how many of these, I've just discovered how to make myself nice and big for when I need to. And then I can make myself smaller, and we can look at the stuff that people actually care about, like 10 ways to add life to your sound. So yeah, let me know where you're tuning in from, guys. As always, it's always interesting for me just to have a bit of perspective. Have you been creating music today? Have you been doing sound design? Or have you been doing that over the weekend? Let us know what you got up to. Today, we're going to be exploring 10 ways to add life in your sounds. And when I say life, I'm talking about ways that we can sort of manipulate sounds and add energy to these sounds to make them basically more interesting. That's what the whole purpose of music is how can we keep the listener engaged, you know? So these are a number of methods that are common practice and some that are maybe not less as common. Some of them they range for people who are just dipping their toe into production, who might not have heard things like parallel and layering, and then we go into some slightly more advanced stuff, but either way there's something here for everyone is how I think. A really big change for me today is I'm using a new DAW which I've been using for a while. I've got the push behind me here, but in terms of sound design I'm going to start using Ableton Live. I've just started getting it a lot more. I know probably about 90% of you guys are using Ableton or FL. Studio One I still use it. I just feel like there's limitations on it for sound design, so I'm starting to use Ableton. So let's see what happens. So today I'm going to be using mainly, like I said, Ableton. I'll be using X for Serum, Arturia stuff, Cable Guy stuff, Kilohertz, Farm Filter, some of the freebies from last week. Unfortunately, last week our stream broke apart into two separate videos. I still have no idea as to why, but if you want to, know some free stuff to use that doesn't cost you a penny, go and watch last week's 2 live streams to figure out what we're going to be using. So briefly, to compromise and give you an idea of the rundown before we get going, the stuff that we're going to look at is layering. So in terms of layering, I'm on about a sound, either adding or subtracting stuff to it, and I'll explain what I mean by subtracting, because layering, sure, you would think that just means adding more, but not necessarily in terms of subtractive synthesis. So for example, if I have a sound and I want to add some more energy to it, I'll maybe layer it with some real audio and some samples. Then I'm going to look at dynamic layering. So dynamic layering I use as a compositional tool to try and maybe get a progression off the ground, because most of today's modern music is less, it's hardly anything is about harmony or melody. It's more about sounds and textures than ever, which is really cool. I know a lot of people hate on that, but I think it's more, music is more interesting to listen to than ever in terms of textures. So that's where dynamic layering comes in really handy. Number 3 would be parallel processing. I'm talking mainly stuff like saturation and compression. Number 4, multiband. So we're going to be looking at multiband compression and distortion. A couple of free tools there we can use as well. 5th one is movement. 6th one is automation. 7th one is noise. Noise is your friend, not your enemy, even though people in the, when you start learning production, you want to try and avoid noise. That's actually, there's a right and wrong to that. Number 8 is resampling. So this is a great way to create generative results, and we can use these for our own unique database of samples. Number 9 is creating atmospheres. We can do this in a number of ways. One of them is reverse effects. And yeah, there's a lot more there. And then the last one is by blending multiple samples. I'm going to use a very specific tool for that. I feel like it's the first thing that's came along that I love just as much as Serum, which takes a lot of effort. So here's the big difference. Hopefully everyone can see the DAW nice and clearly. As you can see, I've got the old Ableton Live 11 here. So let me guys know what DAW you're using. I'm curious. Maybe you're already an Ableton user. But yeah, let me know where you're tuning in from, what you're hoping to get out of today, maybe some sound design effects that you use to breathe life into your sounds. And as always, whatever I create here in this stream will end up for free on our Discord server, so you can grab presets, samples, etc. So without further ado, I'm going to basically write this track. I'm going to create a section, or like sort of like a loop almost, as a way to demonstrate all of these different techniques. And then you can hear them in context because it makes a lot more sense, and that's how I'd imagine most people are going to use it on their music. So I've got the OG here, Serum. I know we've used it a billion times by now. I'll just make it a tad bigger. So one of the main things that I love to do is layer sounds, okay? So it could be within one actual VST, or I could be layering it with other programs. So for example, I could be hi everyone, just joining Machine Store. Awesome. Oh cool. Native Instruments, that's awesome. I don't know many people who use that as the actual standalone DAW. I know a lot of people who use Machine though, and it's awesome. So that's interesting. Thanks, Chris. So yeah, Serum is really good if you want to layer, because we have the two oscillators and then we have our third noise oscillator. It's a really good way to get into layering, but we can do more with stuff like pigments, and then you can build your own routing chains and stuff. But I'm just going to start off by creating a simple chord progression, and then we're going to build upon this with every single different technique in this live stream. Okay, so let's just create. My favorite thing to do for creating any sound is always start with a sine wave. I just feel like it's the easiest thing to do. That's not the sine wave. Okay, I'm just going to make this a little bit more, tiny bit more interesting. Okay, I'll just leave this filter here for later on. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a chord pattern. Yeah, something like that will definitely do. I'll just turn off the loop and let's just record this. Okay, that'll definitely do. Okay, and I'll just come in and quantize this. Someone's saying, are you not happy that I've gone over to Ableton? Don't worry, I'll still be using, I'll definitely still use Studio One for a lot of things, so it's not like it's gone at all. It's very good as producers and composers and artists who just work on our own stuff to change it up from time to time with new tools, I find. Cool. Okay, and let's just even just this small section, because I don't really need to build a loop that's any bigger than that, to be honest. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly go, hey Larry, I'm just going to quickly go and grab the tool I prefer for creating layers. Pigments. Okay, so I've just got this here, and believe it or not, this is one of the easiest ways to get, I always forget it's called Defil on here. One of the best ways to get some layers going is purely just drop in another VST. It doesn't have to be anything complex, and that way you're going to start building dynamic layers, but you can use each one for a slightly different purpose. Shaping this a tiny bit, I'm actually going to apply a filter to this and get rid of the opposite side. Okay, let's take this down to pigments, and let's pull pigments up here. Okay. Okay, so pigments is really good multi-timbral synth because we can do layering within pigments. We can do the same obviously with serum, but in pigments we have a little bit more optionality in terms of the layers that we're building. So if we're going to try and create energy, we're going to try and create interest. The first place is we need more options. So we've got our basic sine wave, okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to layer this. I'm just going to keep it a sine wave and layer it with something that's a real audio sample. And I'm just going to come into the granular friendly folder and have a search around here. So let's hear the sample on its own. Interesting. Turn off the utility engine. Okay, something like this is super interesting. That could also be really interesting. What I'm going to do is send this to a separate filter. Okay. Okay, let's definitely shape this one for sure. Okay, it's an interesting sample for sure. Okay, I'm just going to come back into MIDI and slightly shorten this last note here. Okay. So, I'm not digging the sample too much. It's a process of trial and error. Nothing here is pre-prepared if you haven't already noticed. Maybe something which has, yeah, maybe something like a bell. Okay, I'm going to use something like this because I really like the transients. I'm going to turn the granular on as well. So this saves me having to use any spatial effects, but it's nice how it's sort of regenerative. I'm going to take a random filter. Sort of like sample and hold. I'm going to use a random filter to change the start position. I'm going to use the random filter to change the density and the size. This is random filter number 1. And it just adds a little bit more interest over time. Another way to sort of add energy. Cool. I'm just going to freeze this. There we go. Sure it's taking its time. So basically I would tend to layer in a number of different VSTs. What I like about dynamic layering is the way you can take a chord progression and spread it across a number of different VSTs. Literally just drag and drop in the MIDI. Don't feel guilty about it because you can get different results on each one. And I'm going to do the same thing again, in fact. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing one more time, but I'm just going to use really basic. Let's have a look. Maybe something like, well, in fact, we'll just stick with another version of Serum just purely for, I know most people probably have this one. Okay, so let's change the waveform for basic shape. Okay, and let's change the filter to something very unconventional, like a comb filter. Okay. Just going to apply an LFO to this. This is just how I get things. So that's interesting effect, isn't it, with a comb filter. Cancel that. Cool, and I'm just going to use a noise oscillator on the start here. Okay. Let's do one shot and let's let it track the keys. Let's go with the chorus. What's 64 like? Probably not audible. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and last thing is I'm just going to start adding some distortion. Definitely something a lot more something a lot more subtle. Okay, that'll do for now. I'm trying not to get too complex as I go through. Let's hear these 3 different layers together. Come back and get rid of this for now. So one thing you can definitely do, I think most people know these things, but it's worth me mentioning as I go through, is increase the voices, the unison. Okay, so dynamic layering. I'm basically just copying the part onto different VSTs as I go and seeing what works with my ear. Really simple. But the layering of the dynamic layering can go further than that. So what you can do is you can choose parts for each instance. So for example, I've copied the same MIDI over from one track to another. But then what I've done is I'm starting to take it and dissect it. So for example, I maybe pull apart the intervals and the structure of the chords and the tonality. So for example, this part here, I'm just going to remove the main. So the most important part here is the thirds and the thirds, sevenths, the root. So I'm just going to keep the root and third here. I've got rid of the original lower octave because it'll get replaced with a bass synth. Okay. And let me just zoom to check these. Okay. Okay, So here's another tool that I'm really liking at the minute called Cube from Lunacy Audio. So the reason I like this is another really great way to add energy to a track is it allows you to blend between samples in a waveform. I'm going to use it in exactly the same way I've just previously been doing. This is a 3-chord progression. I'm copying it amongst 3 different samplers or multi-timbral synths. And I'm just using it to sort of try and get inspiration going. But what I love about Cube is it allows you to basically go between samples using this orbit view. So you can blend between the samples. It's a nice visual way to understand it. But the best thing is if you go in the sounds folder in the overview, you can drop your own samples into here and blend between them. So this is not like a shameless paid promotion. I'm using this tool because I really love it. And it's one of the only things that I seem to really have started using a ton, using it as much as I have used Serum over the years. So I've got a patch here that I've created, and I'm just going to copy it again over to Cube. And there's ways we can make that even more interesting again. So we could automate the parameters, and that's another way that I like to create interest in the sound design. Okay, same thing with this one, just to be on the safe side. I'm just going to freeze it. One thing I've learned about Ableton is that the freezing is great, but the freezing is necessary if you want to then bounce the MIDI to audio. And another thing that I like to do to add life and energy is take, so freeze the MIDI or something and take it onto an audio track. So, for example, let me just pull this onto an audio track. So this is the MIDI that I've had across all of the instruments, and let me set up, first of all, audio track. Pull this one up here. Okay, cool. So here's the audio, but what you can do is you can reverse it. This is not a brilliant example based on the fact that Cube's already got some of these things going on, but it's a really, really good way to add interest to different sections. So if I just mute this one. You could actually bounce the whole thing and use it as a bed as well. So another way to create an atmosphere is to use this track purely as a, let me have a look. As like a bed of audio by creating a reverb bed. What I'll do is, let's just hear this one more time. I'm just deciding. Okay, unfreeze this track, and let me just check this. So these are all different samples that have been dragged in just as waveforms. You can then change the global envelope, and you can change their individual envelope as well. But I'm purely liking this for the way you can blend between samples. I think if you guys can think of another way you can do this, I'd be very, very interested to know a way that you can blend between wave audio like this. I know you could drop a waveform into Serum or Pigments or Vital, and then you could morph the wavetable. But I'm curious if there's a way that does it similar to this, because it's a very, very interesting method. So I've got some presets here that I've created myself and some presets that come with it. I'm just looking for a single note. It's a bit Dune-esque. It's a little bit too dystopian. Okay, let's go in. This is nice, so I'm going to head into the overview of the samples. Okay, I definitely prefer just this. Okay, this actually needs to be much, much higher, doesn't it? Let's try recording this then. Okay. I'm just going to freeze and bounce this to audio. Still looking for the freeze button. Not too bothered about it being quantized whatsoever. The reason being is I'm just going to absolutely drench it in a free tool, which I was talking about last week, which is Supermassive. So I'm just going to get rid of this. So last week we were looking at free plugins. And Supermassive is one of those plugins which is hard to believe it's free. So of course one of the ways you can add energy to sound is creating spatial effects and using reverb. Cool, I quite like this. I'm just going to reverse this. Okay, let's hear this in context with the rest of the tracks. Yeah, I like it. It is perfect for what I'm currently working on. So as you can see, the layering and the dynamic layering is a really good way to add energy. I know that it's quite self-explanatory. We're literally just dropping the MIDI onto something else, but it's a really good starting point. If you have an idea that you're not too confident with, I just drop the MIDI onto another channel and hear it with a different sound, a different preset. So don't be afraid to maybe pursue something that you feel isn't musically inspiring, because textually it could just be waiting to be captivated by a different sound or a different engine, and that's why it's interesting to just look at that. It's the same part copied over 4 different tracks. One of them's got full voicings, one of them's just playing intervals, and one of them is just a single note. The other thing would be to change the rhythms of these sounds, and that's one of my other points. Okay, so automation and creating rhythm is really, really important for creating interest over time, and again, adding energy. So one of the ways I like to do this is if you use the Cable Guy's volume shaper. Now you can do it with the volume shaper, or you can do it with stuff like LFO tool. LFO tool. This one I used last week from, oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue. If you go and watch one last week, there's a free tool that does this. So none of this, you don't have to buy any of this stuff whatsoever, but this is definitely a good starting point. So if I go into rhythms, I've got a good starting point here. Let's have a listen. Okay, that's definitely going to work in context with the other layers, because this one does not have, the other ones are all, this is the one that's had the rhythmic variation. Let's have a listen. Okay, perfect. So the volume shaper is a cool tool from Cable Guys, and it leads me on nicely to part number 2. So something that Volume Shaper and Shaperbox in general does really well is multiband. So multiband is a thing that I use a lot when it comes to compression and when it comes to saturation, but also you can use multiband in Shaperbox, which is one of the reasons I love this the most. So as you can see, we're targeting the mid band, but we could target different areas. I'm going to keep it all on one band purely for the volume, but I'm going to add in filter to create a pattern. And I'm going to apply it just to a certain spectrum. And then add a different filter at the top. This is quite different already from just the basic 3-chord progression that we had at the start. And I feel like multiband is something that people, if they're not aware of it, is something that can really breathe a lot of energy and life into the sound. And the main reason a lot of people come into the sort of awareness of multiband is because of OTT. So let me grab, this is OTT in the sort of third-party format, but we also have OTT inside of Ableton. I'm going to apply this to this track here on Cube. So this is working as an upwards and a downwards compressor, but I pretty much mainly use the upwards expansion. Let me just solo this. So essentially it's doing the opposite to traditional compression. It's bringing up frequencies in the highs and the mids in this case. And it's a really, really great way with, especially with transient heavy material. I use this a lot on drums, believe it or not, but the depth's got to be quite low because I find that you do get a lot of phasing issues with OTT. Let's check this out. Okay, it's already coming along. I like it. I feel like in order to appreciate the that layer now, we need to slightly just bring the level down on it. Okay, cool. So we'll definitely come back to the OTT stuff. Yeah, my work is just seeing someone mention about the workflow. The Ableton's brand new for me, just in case it's not aware. I've been using Studio One a lot, but I'm just diving into Ableton purely for I love it for sound design and for the Max for Live devices are really, really interesting. So parallel processing fits in quite nicely with what we've just been doing there with OTT. Because I like to use stuff in parallel, it's a good way to retain the original signal and also blend in the same signal but maybe processed in quite a heavy fashion. Let's just check out this sample. Really, really simple. Okay. So the main ways, if people aren't, again, apologies if this is just rudimentary knowledge for some people, but I'm trying to make it sort of a bit of information for everyone here. So parallel is something that originally came around on aux returns on a desk, and it was a way of blending in the signal being processed from another device. In the digital domain, it's become easier and easier to the point where nearly every single control on any plugin now has a mix or a dry-wet control. So we don't really need to even set up auxes that often. Still need to do it, but we don't need to do it that often. It allows you for better control, but for the majority of the time, I'd say about 75% of the time, you can get away with using the dry-wet mix blend. So in terms of parallel, the two things that you want to do the most is compression and saturation. So I've got a compressor here. I'm using it to tame the peaks, but also to add some energy and life into this drum loop because it's pretty limp. So the one thing I noticed a lot is it does bring up the sort of overall perception of the volume, which I've attenuated, but the kick has a lot more, the snare has a lot more energy to it. it's almost been elongated, and that's a cool effect. So we can take this further by doing the same thing with saturation. So saturation, there's many forms of it. We've got saturation in terms of overdrive, and then we've got wave folding, bit crushing, but I'm just using the saturator on sinoid fold mode here. And again, blending it in. And these are simple ways that you can make samples your own. So you bounce out a drum loop like this and you use it in maybe a lot of your tracks. For example, I do this with top loops. I do this, and then when I drop them into a session and I'm writing, they need less processing, because less is more, definitely. You don't have to then... A good example is if you purchased a sample library. A lot of those samples have already been treated and processed, so you don't necessarily have to keep stacking up things. The main reason to then use compression again is to have cohesion within your track. So to be able to sort of group all the elements together maybe on a drum kit, that's a really good reason to use it. Or maybe you want to radically change the sound of your drum sample, but as a starting point, I'd imagine 99% of them have already been processed, but you want to change them, which is completely fine. So the best way to understand parallel is go really heavy-handed and back off. Another thing that is important is understanding the routing. So saturation before compression can sound better. And again, it's subjective. It doesn't have to be that way. Something I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly drop in a bass, because I feel like this is quite important. I'm just going to quickly whip up my favorite kind of bass. And I'm sure many people know what this might be. So on basic shapes. Just basically a respace. I'm just going to use an LFO to ramp this. Pulling back on the level of the sub. Okay, cool. Let's just get this part down. Again. It would help if I was in the right key. I'm still playing C. Cool. Okay, that'll do purposefully just to try and get the groove going for this entire piece. Okay, let's ditch the metronome. And let's bring the kit back in from before. So this has got a parallel. So far we've done layering, dynamic layering to try and spread it across different VSTs with the same part, but maybe changing aspects of the actual MIDI information. We've added movement using the shaper guys, but we could do the same thing with, for example, the panel, an LFO, a lot of the free stuff that comes within your DAW. We've looked at parallel processing. Next thing I want to look at is how we can use noise within our production to try and emphasize the energy of the sound design. Let's check this out. Okay, another thing that is really good for creating movement, and again, it could be a technique that you don't know, it could be a technique that you've known for a long time, is to add some form of sidechain compression where you're going to get the typically the bass, but also could be all of the other elements to duck to mainly the kick, but it could be to the snare. Again, there's no right or wrong. Can be a little bit of a complex routing change sometimes when you're not familiar at the start of these sort of processes, but really to do sidechain compression is not that hard at all. You have to receive the audio from something else, or you can do it with something like Kickstart. So I'll show you both ways really quick. So I'm receiving the information here from this backbeat kit here. So we need this on to my bass channel. Let's check these two together just so I can hear it in context. This is definitely the bass channel. Naming is very helpful. Oh, it's just because it's not enabled. Yeah. So you can hear the pulsation here. You can do this with Kickstart, which is another tool. Okay, let's have maximum attack at a full ratio. Okay, and that's another way that we can add more energy is simply by getting stuff to duck around. The main thing that's driving the force of your track is usually the drums. I'm just quickly checking in. I'm using a lot. I'm not used to sound design those many producers, including increased unison for bass. Yes, that's correct, yeah. Thought low frequencies. Yeah, you're absolutely right as well, Park HJ. Thank you for tuning in. It's always nice to see new people here. So I'm creating the bass mainly just to give this some groove, but for example, I've applied that on the bass. I usually pick up the questions at the end just to make people aware, but I'll pick up this one as it's relevant, what I'm currently working on. So I've applied this to this channel here, this oscillator, and there's a sub oscillator which has not got the voices applied to it. So this one, probably if I was being more serious in the production, I would have this one up an octave higher, and then I would maybe create a separate sub bass on a separate track. And you're absolutely right, you want the low frequencies to be mono for mono compatibility. The sub, however, here, this has not got any additional voices applied to it. So this is just mono, this one's stereo. It's another thing that I like to do with basses is subconsciously, without even saying it there, I'm already layering the sound. So I've got a sub, I'm layering an oscillator A, and then I could even layer an oscillator B with a slightly higher, more plucky sort of sound. But usually I try to do 3 different basses when I'm producing sub, your main body, and one that's plucked and wide to give it width. So there's lots of different ones to use. No right and wrong is the honest truth. But yeah, with low frequencies, you absolutely don't want to spread low frequencies anywhere from sort of like 200-300, even up to 1000 hertz. I wouldn't want to be doing any weird stereo phasing on them. Okay, so far, layering, dynamic layering, parallel processing with saturation and compression, multiband compression and distortion. So he's looking at that with OTT and cable guys. We can also do it with Saturn 2. Again, this is a paid plugin. This is one of my favorite plugins. It's just so sophisticated, the way you can take control of multiple bands. So for example, I might want to make the middle here really crispy and pick a different type of saturation. Or maybe abandon that layer completely and just saturate the low end. Probably work better on the kit. So here I could apply to sort of low mids, American tweed amp. And again, I blend it in maybe in parallel. And let's add a really high band. So there's another way. Yeah, no problem at all. Please, if you have any questions, keep them coming. And I usually pick them up in the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes. By the way, if you're enjoying today's stream, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and turn on the bell notification for icons. Not only do we pick the themes and the subjects, but we also take suggestions from you. So if you're enjoying this, give us some ideas. The best place to do that is, I would say, head over to our Discord. So the Discord link will be in the chat below. But if you head over to the Discord, we have a sound design channel, and that would be a great place for you to suggest stuff that you want to learn or specific techniques, topics. We also do one each month where we try and look at an artist or a specific sound. So please feel free to join there, and we definitely will be taking some of your suggestions. Okay, so let's see. Time is of the essence here. One thing that I found really, really interesting is resampling. So resampling can mean quite a few different things, but for example, I'm going to take the output, I'm resampling this cube here, and I'm going to resample this. Let's just mute these ones for now. And basically, every time I go around, I get a different result. This is great if you are not only a sample creator, but if you are someone who is going to be creating, you want like one sound with multiple variations. It would work great for kicks or, you know, other things. It doesn't have to be any specific sound set, but the resampling input on Ableton here is really, really good for this. And I'll show you as to why. Hey, Adam, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Always forget to check Facebook. I'm terrible for that. If you have any questions on Facebook, please let us know. Yes, this is Ableton 11. Freshly dipping my toes in the water the past couple of weeks, but if I'm completely honest, it's the best DAW that I've found for sound design, at least for myself. So I'm going to grab something crazy. Let's have a look. Max audio effect, vector delay. Hey Panas, thanks for being here. Cube freeze. Let's have a look. the spinning wheel of death. Okay, so this is a Max for Live instrument. This is one of the main reasons that I've got into Ableton, is because I feel like it's a sound design playground, and I love the fact that you can create your own. Basically, I had to start getting interested in trying to create my own software, just frustrated by limitations. So let's have a listen to this. The thing I like about resampling with this resampling channel is I can play back, I can basically record all the different things I'm going to do to this sample. Sure, I'll give you a quick play of what we're working on. Sorry, I'll just, again, my workflow needs to improve here, as you can see, but even it's important to learn something new. So I'm just started messing with this vector delay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just solo these two channels, and I'm going to put some more effects on. I'm trying to use the audio effects that are built in here. Let's have a look. Grain delay. I'll even just pull up a preset. So I'm just trying stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make adjustments to these plugins in real time, and resampling is going to capture all the changes, and it gives me multiple versions. Really good for processing things where you want to have a collection of sounds fast, intuitively, but with really genuine and randomized sort of results. The best way to show you it is to just shut up and do it. So this is resampling the input from Cube. Okay, let's mess around. I really like what it's done at the top end. The best part about this in terms of adding life to your sounds is it's organic and it's very generative, and it's something that you would never have done if you were to just pick up a plugin and insert it. And I love the way it tracks the movements. Okay, cool. So now, if I come to the resampling track and simply go like this, pull the sample over here, it's recorded everything that I did, and let me just listen to this. So what I could do is I could take little samples of this audio and make a billion ideas out of it, and I could resample it again. So I could take this track and resample it onto another track, but you could totally use sections of this. Okay, so let me have a look. Even that bit there is really cool, but I like it when I got more creative. Let's have a listen. There's some stuff I did towards the end which was really, yeah, it's like a sample grain, very, very like a granulizer. Okay, I think there's something I did towards the end here. Okay, let's take this bit. And I'm just literally going to drop the rest of it. And I'm going to reverse this. Okay, let's have a listen to what this sounds like, and I can apply a little fade. Okay, you could do 1,000 things with this now. So you could apply a filter to it. You could even turn this into transitional effects, something I really like to do. Yeah, it's a bit like a Live's version of Portal, isn't it? It's really good, but I think the resampling abilities are fantastic if you want to play these things in. Basically, if you want a software version of modular, I'm aware that there's things that literally replicate modular, but I think this is a really, really intuitive way to do it. And I think we can make a cool stream around Max for Live devices in Live, building your own and really going down the sound design tunnel end. What I would do is I would drop the cable guys, volume shaper. Sorry, not volume shaper. I would drop the noise shaper onto this vinyl, and I would add a sort of ramp to it. Let's check this out now. And then you could do all sorts. You could time stretch it. Hey, Simple Sam. Nice to see you here. Okay, let's check out what we've got. I'm aware this might not be perfectly, you know, melodically in pitch with what we've done, but let's nonetheless, let's have a listen. I feel like it's cool how generative it is. Let's apply this. I'm just thinking about what I could do with this further. I'm conscious of our time is the annoying thing. Yeah, you never know. Black Friday, they might do. A shaper box is already a crazy good price, in my opinion, for what it is. But you never know. You never know. So we just got a really good bed now to create a melody over the top of, essentially, haven't we? Another great way to add energy into a song is to bring in some real instrumentation. I would definitely sample your real instruments that you have lying around. We could be on with this for all day, but I feel like there's a lot of things we could do. We're just scratching the surface here, getting into some more interesting unconventional stuff with the resampling at the end there. But let me know if you got something from this, if there's something you want to explore in the future. If you have any questions, please get them in. I'm just looking at what we had, but I think I picked up Park HJ's question about monocompatibility. Yeah, a lot of people here today. There's about quite a few of you there, but quiet in the comment section. I hope everyone's doing okay. Thanks, Larry. Yeah, I definitely like to shred guitar on some of these tracks for sure. But energy-wise, my main things that again I'll just reiterate was layering, dynamic layering, parallel processing, multiband, movement. Again, I would probably use a lot more stuff like tremolos and chorus. I need to use my big camo. Automation, noise. Another version of noise shaper that I love to use is RC20. How do you approach gain staging? Do you do it straight away when starting out, or no? So I'll basically, a lot of people have a different way to do this, but I like to basically just forget about anything like that and get the compositional stuff down, unless you're talking about like, have you finished your track and you're going into mixing. But I'll basically have a couple of different, oh, we have some deals planned with Cable Guys Black Friday. There we go. Cable Guys, some of my favorite stuff. So sorry, Adam, I'll get back to you. So I typically have three or four different sessions. I have the writing session, the compositional session about whatever track I'm creating. And then I will have a sound design session either prior or after. Usually after, I try and go back and replace samples that need changing to fit the track. And then on the third go round, I'll do the mixing. And then that's when I get sort of like the gain staging. But with that being said, I try to get the levels all sitting at sort of -6 dB so that I have headroom when I'm using devices. I would consider this right now a compositional sound design sort of session, because I'm basically just, and also I think this is really important, is have sessions where you're just creating bleeps and bloops and noises. It doesn't even have to be stuff you use. It's great if it is, but it's good to experiment and try. But I usually try and get the levels to sit sort of -6 to -12. Plenty of headroom for mixing into plugins, because they are going to add volume and gain themselves. So I hope that answers your question. Anyway, if you've liked this, guys, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. We're here every Monday. There's more throughout the week. And please join our Discord. You'll be able to grab all these free sounds. I'm always around to answer questions. We'll also have a stream from myself on Sunday, a special stream for a new course that we have coming out. In the meantime, I hope you have a great week, and I shall catch you at the very end of the week. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know, and if you have any suggestions for future streams, just holler at us on the Discord. Alright guys, I shall catch you later. See you later guys, bye.